without a curriculum. So they don't have to teach you something. You're able to just listen to them teaching. Which is obviously how the Upanishads were originally composed. So basically, the first time I went to Woodstock, which I think was 2013, sorry. Either 2013 or 2014. And to hear David and Sharon talk about God completely without any kind of concern for other people's opinion. So teaching in London, I was quite cautious about using the word God, because I know it's a word that causes a lot of associations in people and can trigger a lot of people. And so I had always sort of backed off the word. It's just a word. But when David was talking about Jivamukti Yoga as an art form and using the art to connect with God and God in each person in that room, that made a lot of sense to me. And all of a sudden, my fear of being judged for talking about God just fell away. So I then felt that gave me another element of something I could talk about freely and authentically. Yeah. And then the other thing that happened were a whole range of spiritual experiences whilst I was traveling in India. And having had those experiences, you immediately know the veracity of the teachings. So when you have that experience, you're no longer in any way, you're talking about it from a personal place, which is completely different to talking about it from a theoretical place. So that was the other thing that meant that I could then speak with 100% of my own voice.
Yeah, and that's also so beautiful, like to make it authentic, because I can tell straight away when someone just read it from a book, or is actually or learned it by heart from a book, or is actually talking from the heart, from their own experiences. And I think that can really drive you as a teacher. And I've definitely seen that also in your classes for sure. You know, it's really.
But I think there's something like we can't all have deep spiritual experiences as yoga teachers. There's an awful lot of us now, and not every single yoga teacher will have had a samadhi experience. So how to be able to own our lack of knowledge is actually really important as well. To say, I haven't had this experience, but I have complete faith that this experience is out there and that I can have it. I think that is much more honest and valuable to our students than pretending that we
exactly. Yeah. When really you just read it.
Yeah, exactly. Or like. If you're cynical or skeptical about something, that's okay. You can share that skepticism. I just think too many of us don't really know who we are or why we're here. Like, the question about finding one's voice, how many of us can say that we speak authentically or we speak with our own voice when we're just in conversation with each other? And if we can't do it with our family or with our friends, how on earth can we do it in front of a room of people who we don't know?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Yeah.
But I also think it's our responsibility to do it.
Yeah.
In front of that room of people who we don't know. Because what an act of trust.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That they've come, that they're trusting us. So anyway.
Yeah, but it's definitely a responsibility we have as teachers, is also to value, like I also really value, like, wow, you're here with me. I have, 90 minutes of your time, and so it's definitely something to respect. But also I find the flip side of that is also like the students do not make the class, the teacher makes the class. So
absolutely.
I also find that a good teacher gives students what they need, not what they want. Like they probably want to do other things, or they don't want. It's the same what you just said about David and Sharon talking about God. I have that with veganism. If I want to speak about veganism and you don't like it, well, filter it out. You know, it'll end anytime soon. You know, before you know it, you'll be in Shavasana, you never have to see me again. But it is my passion and it is what's in my classes, and so I am going to share it because this is also my time to share it. You know, and so in that sense, you know, it's also important. I know lots of teachers who say like, oh yeah, but I don't really want to do this because I think students won't like it. Like, come on, it's your class, you know?
Exactly.
Deal with it, you know?
It's the difference between wanting to become a yoga teacher because we want to make people feel good and wanting to become a yoga teacher because we want people to feel happy. Yeah. Now, it's not, that's not quite right. Well, that's not quite what I mean. Wanting people to like us.
Yeah, that's it.
Just because they like us doesn't necessarily mean that they're learning anything.
Yeah.
I remember a class I took with Sharon, and I was not having loving thoughts towards her through a lot of that class. Because she was teaching and she was telling and she was explaining and discussing things that I found really challenging. Really challenging.
Yeah.
But for me, that's just as valuable and just as important to have a safe space where I can be challenged.
Absolutely. And where you're learning and where you're getting something that you do need. You know, that you need in your life. And even now you still remember that. You probably still remember exactly what she said. You know, I mean, I have that too. Yeah. You know, I definitely have these moments with Sharon and David and Stuart and, you know, many of the Mick, you know, teachers that are so important to me. And I love them for it. I love them so much because they challenge me. And I think that that's something that we as teachers also, I mean, I recently had a student saying to me, you're so strict. I'm like, yeah, do you want to be my best friend and drink a cup of tea? Or do you want me to, you know, do you want to take a class and actually learn something? You know, I find a compliment anyway when people say that. I'm like, okay, well, at least she's listening and she's learning, obviously. So that's good. You know, she is giving me the opportunity to be her teacher. And that's a very good thing, you know. So lastly, about the book. So we'll also put it here in the notes and people can... You were mentioning they can buy it on Amazon, they can buy it through the publisher, so I'll make sure that I put all of that in the notes. And what I wanted to ask you also it's for me, but also the listeners. So I have a very kind of double feeling. I've never been to India, and I was like, I'm going to read your book, and then, you know, let's see what, you know, I'm sure it's going to give me lots of inspiration. I definitely want to go, but I also have had a lot of... You know, you hear such double stories of, you know, I mean, David Live, for example, said, don't ever go there, Carol. Like, just don't go to India, you know. And I have some problems with just thinking about how they treat animals especially. And then, of course, through that also human beings. And I don't know, I'm also a bit scared to go. So do you feel, two questions, what would your advice be to people? And do you also feel that your book gives people a good idea how that would be to go to India?
Okay, so I'm going to answer the second question first. I hope it gives people a good idea. The feedback from people is that it is a fair and honest portrayal of the country that I experienced. And that's feedback that's not just come from middle-class white women. It's also come from quite a few of my Indian friends who were fascinated to read the book because they wanted to know what my experience was. And it's that kind of sense of, what is it like when you want to know what someone else is saying about you.
Yeah.
So that was...
What is her opinion on India? I want to know.
What did she really think? And it was really, I was really honoured by how positively the book was received by anyone who's read it. So I think it's a fair portrayal. I tried to be fair. Obviously, it's written from my cultural perspective, so I can't be entirely neutral. And that will then lead into the first question, which is, so I believe we are capable of curating our own experiences. So, for example, I think we have to make very conscious choices about where we go and how we go, how we dress and how we behave. So personally, I chose to dress very conservatively because for me that was a sign of respect for the culture and the country.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the treatment of animals and other human beings, it is deeply shocking and deeply disturbing. However, what I found is that it motivated me to find ways that I could support those people and charities who were working against it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that, so it's a very, for me, it was a very good lesson in knowing that me as one individual in this circumstance cannot necessarily make a big difference for this one person or this one puppy.
Mm-hmm.
Although there is actually a very semi-amusing story about a dog that gets hit by a car. That's not amusing. But everyone else didn't do anything. And I went and sat next to the dog and phoned the vet and sat next to the dog and talked to the dog until the vet arrived. And so that was me making a difference in a very small way.
Mm-hmm.
But then obviously I recognized, okay, so this is me making a difference in a small way, but now I need to give money or I need to support the work.
Do something in a bigger way.
This vet.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
So it's hard, but it can help us to become motivated to act, as long as we don't become overwhelmed by the sadness in the situation.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think that's a very important, really important point. Thank you so much, Claire. I really hope, I definitely still want to get your book and read it, and then I'll let you know what I think. I'm sure it's amazing, because I'm a big fan of you anyway, Claire.
It's quite funny.
Yeah, I would have expected that from you, Claire. I wouldn't expect anything less, Absolutely. And I because I know you, it's going to be nice to read it because it's like you talking to me, so.
That's what people say. Yes.
And I really,
Thank you, Karen.
I really appreciate you taking the time for this podcast. I mean, you have to come more often because I just love, and I also really want to say how much I appreciate your, just our friendship and our relationship and our connection. Like, I mean, it was really like, I'm sure we met 500 times before in other lives. But it definitely felt like such a strong connection. And you really, it's changed my life just to meet you, to be in your presence. And I think we need to be surrounded by people that are on the same frequency, who are like-minded and who can really uplift ourselves, and you do that all the time for me. And I really appreciate your support and it's always good advice. And this advice that you gave me, I really want to give to everybody else. Like, I think we can together say here to people, please look after yourself and like go into that, exactly what you said, self-practice, self-care, take this time to preserve energy and not, go pushing things or, I think that's really, really good advice, especially this group,
By doing that, we serve our students better.
Yeah. And I think even in a non-yoga teacher setup, like, just preserve and conserve yourself as well, because you'll be serving your community, your friends, your family. You gotta look after yourself. I think that this is also, such an important time to, people are, stuck in their houses or, are going through so much. And I feel that, we really need to be mindful of what it's doing to our mental health as well, and look after ourselves.
Absolutely.
And definitely. So with that advice, I'm going to leave this episode. So look after yourself very well. Like, take this advice that Claire has given you. And I always say, look after yourself, but also look after others, especially the animals. Thank you so much for listening, guys. And thank you, Claire. Goodbye.